So I'm just going to start by saying a huge thanks to KPF because this lecture is being sponsored by KPF tonight. The Sheldon Fox Pedersen Fox Endowed Lecture Fund was established in 2007 in the memory of Sheldon Fox, one of the firm's founding partners and a 1953 graduate of UPenn's Master in Architecture. The purpose of the fund is to bring endowed architects to the Weitzman School to speak of their work and inspire members of our community each year. It also goes without saying that it is appropriate to remember and celebrate the life of Gene Cohn. Gene, like Sheldon, was an icon, and he received both his undergraduate and master's degrees in architecture from Penn, right here. So please join me in thanking KPF for their steadfast support. We also will be joined by Jamie von Klemper tonight for tonight's lecture later, and he's the president and principal of KPF. So again, thank you for coming. And I am Rosanna Hu, chair of the architecture department here at UPenn. Just a brief introduction of our speaker tonight. What does it mean to practice architecture when the traditional mechanisms of architectural patronage have largely evaporated? This isn't merely a pragmatic question about survival, it's a theoretical question about the discipline's capacity to constitute its own field of operations. Marcelo Faiden has spent 2 decades developing what might be called an expanded practice, one that refuses the false choice between disciplinary autonomy and market capitulation. As founding partner of adamo-faiden and now dean at Ditella, his work has attracted sustained critical attention. Monographs across 6 countries, extended studies in 2G and Domus, serious engagement from figures like Juan Herreros and Garcia Germain. His doctoral thesis, The Low Part of the High Rise, already signals a methodology, mining architectural potential precisely where convention sees only constraint. I want to focus on 3 interrelated aspects of his work that seem particularly significant. First, an expanded understanding of architectural agency. The Buenos Aires context has been productive here, with historically few public competitions and virtually no state patronage. Architects of this generation learned to produce the conditions for architecture rather than waiting for them. The Canadian Centre for Architecture published a genealogical reading of this lineage, tracing a century of Buenos Aires architects who transformed constraint into invention. What Faiden and Adamo have achieved is making these operations simultaneously and also integral to design itself. As CCA's essay observes, quote, use, location, and architectural resolution become simultaneous design elements of the same hierarchy, close quote. This represents a genuine expansion of architectural intelligence and a viable model for creative practice for the future. Second, a sophisticated approach to architectural language. One of the most compelling aspects of adamo-faiden's work is the formal consistency, that calm, systematic deployment of a modernist lexicon, while the discourse remains open, circumstantial, responsive to each specificity. Garcia Germain calls this their carefully orchestrated approach, a coherent architectural language paired with adaptive thinking. They've appropriated a generic, precisely international style and made it productive. This is a deliberate recovery of the modernist vocabularies that, through their clarity and directness, allow the work to communicate in openness and invites various interventions and interpretations. What makes this particularly interesting is Faiden's own description of their method. Superimposing the knowledge of the others into specific project situations, knowing this superimposition never fits. The architectural work emerges from that gap, that productive mismatch. It's Harold Bloom's, quote, anxiety of influence. Convert it into a design tool, drawing on precedent not to imitate, but to generate something specific to each circumstance. This positions them distinctively within contemporary practice, carefully and gracefully building work that opens itself to serious architectural discourse. Third, the power of the architectural series, perhaps most valuable. Adamo-Faiden has demonstrated that architectural knowledge can accumulate through serial repetition rather than through a singular project. The series, what Garcia-Germain identifies as their commitment to themes and variations applied through an equalizing disciplinary filter, shows that architectural intelligence develops through patient iterations, through what they call optimization and model type recalibrations across multiple built examples. This aligns them with important trajectories in contemporary art practice and with literary tradition they explicitly reference. Juan Benet, a novelist and engineer, writes, "The writer achieves freedom through style." Faiden's work demonstrates the same principle, not freedom despite constraints, but freedom through its systematic, repeated exploration. His dissertation title captures this sensitivity, the low part of the high-rise, finding architectural richness in the residual, the overlooked, the 3 meters where building meets ground. Today's lecture, The Big Equation, addresses contingency as a fertile battleground for architecture. Faiden's work demonstrates that the discipline scope can be larger than we've imagined, and that managing multiple variations and variables simultaneously produces a more comprehensive kind of architectural precision. Please help me welcome Marcelo.
Thank you very much, Rosanna, for this beautiful introduction. Let me move this a little bit. I'm very happy to be here. Also, had to thank Lyndon and Vanessa for the wonderful conversation we had today. So I will take the chance to share the work I do with Sebastián Adamo, my partner, but I will only focus on the urban work of our office. That's because the lecture name is Big Equation. So nowadays we are 8,000 million humans on Earth. When I was born, we were half of that number. It means that in less than 50 years, we double our presence on a planet whose surface remains unchanged. That is why this photograph of Buenos Aires by Horacio Coppola, taken almost 100 years ago, still seems relevant. It shows us the habitat that comes out of this equation, where the variables density and soil lead us to this kind of landscape. I like to describe this landscape as an artificial crust. It's an artificial crust that we build over time and piece by piece, superimposing it to the earth crust. It's a kind of technical mantle of variable thickness, made of energy and fluids, made of infrastructure, made of streets, buildings, and parks. This new crust is the main stage for architecture and its greatest challenge. So if architecture wants to rise to this challenge, it will probably have to update the way it relates to environment. And this environment, the new crust, could be described by 3 elements: the landscape that surrounds architecture, the ground in which it rests and feeds, and the sky that covers it. Architecture must update its current contracts with these 3 elements. If we think about the urban landscape, the first of the 3 contracts I want to focus, we might conclude that, faced with this equation, the windows that we are familiar with are not enough. In this scenario, to make a hole in a wall to connect any interior with the exterior doesn't make much sense, because in a dense city, the exterior is also made by a lot of interiors, not too far from you. The contract between architecture and landscape can be mediated by a transitional space. We can relate to the landscape through a new landscape, with raised gardens that attract more birds and insects to the city, alternating the humidity and the temperature of the air to create intermediate climate. This garden could be a natural extension of any interior space. They could be the filter between us and the cityscape I'm trying to describe. Once the glass recedes from the perimeter, the outside envelope is no longer responsible for the waterproofing. This means it can react more freely to other exterior conditions. In this west-oriented building, a set of roller screen shutters control the sun radiation and the structure of the facade. It creates a kind of mixture, geometric Cartesian proportion from the outside layer and picturesque shadow of the elevated gardens. In this case, the translucent glass panels are blurring the presence of a big avenue. They work as a sound barrier. They calibrate the atmosphere of this elevated garden while helping to connect them with the park in front of them. You cannot see the windows from the outside. The building starts to look like stacked semi-covered spaces. This is a building that is, again, in front of a park, but with no avenue in between. So that means that the exterior envelope becomes almost nothing. That almost nothing wraps all the plan and creates circulation and also the expansion of the units. With just a galvanized steel wire and the vegetation coming outside the building, the continuity here is more direct. So I believe that architecture is a form of knowledge, otherwise we wouldn't be here, no? And then also that we have thousands of years of accumulated experience that through that we distill a great catalog of design technique. So I believe that progress is somewhere in between disciplinary knowledge and contingency. The sun radiation, the heavy rains, the safety South American issues create what we call this curtain wall actualization. That is what we refer to it in the office as ventilated curtain wall. That creates this kind of a lot of version of this transitional space that help us to create this new contract with the urban landscape. Wanted to share this parking silo to conclude my explanation about this contrast of architecture with an urban landscape. And I'm using the word contract because it creates a two-way enrollment. It's in this artificial crust, in this density, architecture not only relate to the landscape, it becomes the landscape. Not only with gardens, because the continuity can happen with anything, and also, as we see here, with cars. This is a truly ventilated curtain wall. It's a situation when you only have to be careful with the water, but you have to let the air of the cars go through the building. It's a building that only have two elements, support and envelope, mostly built out of standard catalog materials. And it helped me to illustrate the idea that architecture can be a filter to relate ourselves with the world. So the second contract I want to present focuses in the relationship with the ground. We are used to thinking of architecture as the discipline that formalizes limits. We need architecture to shape the division between public and private space. Most of the time, we do it with a wall, a fence, sometimes with a simple step that defines control over the land. But in this dense city, architecture also has the power to blur the boundary between public and private. It can foster a more permeable urban landscape, a more porous city. This veterinary clinic that we see here connects the street and the center of the block through a new passageway. So the story starts with an old house that we managed to maintain by only demolishing the central bay in order to create that passage. That passage is aligned with an existing tree, and as we see in the picture, we wrap the existing building with corrugated metal sheets in order to resolve the isolation, the waterproofing, and of course the new identity of the veterinary clinic. So in the ground level, we have all the consulting rooms, and in the first floor, the X-ray laboratory and operating room. But most important is that we have like a patio, like a new garden for a new community. This is how the building looks like from the outside, and this is the interior. It seems like the urban ground goes through the building, creating a permeable space protected from the rain with vegetation and a rough floor designed for pets. The consulting room and the rest of the veterinary clinic are open into this passageway, and at the end of this passage, there is a garden for a community of dogs and humans that demand greater spatial representation. And why this building happened in Buenos Aires is because Buenos Aires is one of the cities with the highest dog-to-population ratio in the world. Yeah, we discovered that through this project. Again, to continue with this contract with the ground, this horizontal and permeable pavilion has a dual responsibility. On the one hand, it has to formalize the perimeter of the Di Tella University campus, and in the other, it must connect the academic life with the neighborhood. The pavilion has sliding panels in both sides, so it's more like an habitable boundary. Basically, it's a winter garden that takes fluids from both sides and are ventilated from the top. It's a structure that regulates its connection to both the streets and the campus. Moving a panel from one side to the other allows us to manage the continuity of the urban ground. The objective of this kind of architecture is to intensify the connection between the parts, promoting the integration of the university with the daily life of the city. Sorry. It's a very systematic and pragmatic structure that offers itself as a meeting place where exhibition like the one we can see here can take place. Moments where neighbor, student, and professor freely cross the property lines. As Le Corbusier announced a century ago, a car can be a good agent to erode the ground floor. So even in housing projects like this, without being accessible to the public, the views and the airflow improve the quality of the city. In buildings of this scale, cars have a huge influence on the ground floor organization. So our approach to this is to find a way of coexistence. The programs in this case do not have a material translation. That means that there is no specific floor for a path for a pedestrian, not a specific kind of floor for cars. Everything is melt in one single space. And because of that, because if we treat cars as big pieces of furniture, you still has the biggest room of the building that could be useful for so many things other than we expected. So this is a social housing project that we are doing for RATP in the university campus of Paris-Saclay. As you can see, it's a corner building that has two different situations. In front, there is a boulevard that connects with the Paris city center, and in the side, there is a pedestrian street that is fully gardened. So from the boulevard perspective, the building rises up in order to connect a productive field with a communitarian garden that you can see here. This is the entrance of the building. So the community garden is in connection with the landscape, with the outside. But to the right of this image, there is a fence that anticipates another approach. So this is the only construction plan I will be sharing tonight because I'm very proud of it. We finished it last week. Yeah, I'm a little bit anxious. But as you can see here, there are a lot of row houses that activate the pedestrian street, avoiding not only having one entrance door and creating and promoting a more physical relationship with the street, with the public space. This is the other side of the building. With all the entrance doors and all these patios that led to the houses behind the building. So this is a drawing of Buenos Aires Center. It's a civic axis with the government house right in the middle, and also with all the ministries that are bordering this linear park that goes from south to north. That black dot in the corner is a tower that we just finished that somehow tries to get into that civic axis by receding its position in the plot and creating a public plaza that links to this central and civic park. So this is a blurry version of the ground floor, and you can see how it's a kind of tower that is more linked to the 19th century kind of tower that they step right into the sidewalk, that they have retail space linked to the public plaza. They have a hall, and of course, there is this passageway that help us to improve the relation with the ground of the city. This is how that tower looks from this new plaza, and you can see the passageway in the back. On the left, there is an historical protected building that is related to National Ports Administration, and on the right, that row of trees are covering the city fabric, and toward the back, the pedestrian walkway. So this is the new passage that makes the ground floor more permeable. As you can see, all the vegetation also get inside that passage, and even through the entrance hall. No, you trying to dilute that ground, even if the property lines are completely different. And once you pass through, the passage also has an impact in the sidewalk with a specific part of vegetation that telling you that the city is not just divided by property line, but a more continued space. So the last contract I want to present is the contract between architecture in the sky and the sky. So we focus of architecture and landscape, architecture and the ground, and now it's a moment to look on how it relates to the sky. I previously described the city as an artificial crust. That means that the upper part of this new crust is in contact with the atmosphere, with the weather. This part of the artificial crust of the city has a privileged position, being under the sky, which is the only natural element that reaches us all. And yet, if you look carefully to this picture, look at what kind of contract architecture established with the sky, which is a purely technical contract. What we see most here are water tanks and waterproof insulation. We believe that we must conquer the surface of the city and transform it into a new support for life. If there are more of us and the Earth's surface area remains the same, we need to build more land. We need to increase the amount of natural accessible land. We need to offer spaces where we can see our surrounding from a different perspective. And I'm not talking about topographic metaphors at all. We can do it with a very simple section as this one. We must reclaim our right to inhabit the upper part of the city, its surface. Here, too, we see the same vacant territory, antennas and tanks that insist in the same technical contract. A church in the back appears, materializing a symbolic contract between architecture in the sky. But the small, almost evanescent apartment building, proposes a different kind of relationship with the atmosphere. It's a relationship that is mediated by a permeable room, made with sunshade awnings, metal mesh, and concrete floor. A compendium of ordinary material capable of constructing new idea of luxury. An idea of luxury that not longer associated with exclusive locations or sophisticated materials, but with the vitality of living atop of this new topography. Again, look how the city looks like, not too different from my view from the hotel. You see water tanks, insulation, and there that small pavilion speak about a little bit about the possibility of being in direct relation with the sky. How easily we can change the way we relate to the weather and what kind of possibilities that could allow us. This is a way to finish a very small apartment and look what kind of furniture are mixed in this new envelope. This same attitude that we built at least 10 pavilion on top of building, and someone saw it from Rome, and this is an attic that we finished in Rome a few years ago, not so far away from the Colosseum. That means that it's a global thing. It's not something that you can see in the States or Argentina. We are treating the roof space as a technical one, and now we slowly are learning how impressive could be to spend time and manage to see the city from a totally different perspective. But also, every step back that is required by city regulation becomes a possibility to insist in this last contract. This is a social housing project that we finished in Montevideo, in Uruguay, where a very economic apartment can take those places as terraces or even share spaces for the community. In this long block of Buenos Aires, the presence of the tree forced the block to step back and to create different spaces, different roof that, as we can see in the section, are treated as a leisure space. In this section, there are two houses superimposed. On the one on the bottom, you can see two different kinds of patio linked by a social space. And on top of that, the social space is linked to the terrace. So that means that every shift of the building creates a place that could be useful or change the way we build apartments. This is the circulation. You can see both of them, no? The one in the first floor, the other on top. And that's how do you get inside those apartments, by a patio that has a barbecue. That's a religion in Argentina. And then you have this space and again a garden in the other side. And the roof of that building, of course, is another garden in complete relation with the tree. This is an exceptional situation in a dense city, because it's a pavilion that expands an existing house, which is in the corner. And those houses, the one in the corner and the other two on your right, are protected buildings. So this pavilion managed to be somehow in between and create a relation between this contradictory urban landscape. If we look into the section, we can find how that small patio, it's something that it's, very hard to get in this dense city. To have a private permeable soil is something that we are going to have less and less in the future. But of course, this pavilion took chance by rotating 90 degrees and using that piece of land. The first floor, it's occupied by bedrooms, and on top of it, the existing roof of that house becomes an expansion of the social area with the kitchen and the living room. And on top of that, you have a swimming pool that works as a roof. That is the same pavilion. When you turn around 45 degrees, you see the receded protected houses on the right and the existing pavilion in the corner. That's the private garden, like very unique in this situation. And this is the existing roof, technical roof, now transformed into a platform that expands the kitchen and the living room. And as you can see in the thickness of the slab that finishes the situation, you can understand that there is a swimming pool that celebrates being in contact with the weather, with the atmosphere, even in a very dense situation as Buenos Aires. And this is the picture I like the most, because this is the power of architecture. No, you see the picture's roof, you see the water tanks, and when you have the possibility to imagine that you can enjoy. Because now we have the technical elements to do that. It's not heroic at all. So you can have a swimming pool like floating in the middle of the city, surrounded by trees, and you can feel that this is a desire that is not just for a few people. Because when we took the picture, we managed, look at the top left corner, there is a small swimming pool over there. But we need to learn to see all those roofs as air plots, That's I believe the future to become the city more desirable, and that's it's an idea that it's not only linked to wealthy people, because if we move to the opposite side, we are using like this same attitude, and we believe that can be applied to the toughest neighborhood of South America. This is Chacarita Alta. It's in Asunción, in Paraguay, a work we did together with Moss and Equipo de Arquitectura. So in this very tough scenario, we were expected to do a block, a block with an elevated passageway, with circulation, and we managed to break that block in order to relate to the informal housing, to the grain of that scenario. And instead of that, we created a lot of entry doors and this complex element that allowed us again to create terraces that can enjoy the air and the city. Even moving to a wider scale in this tower, the city regulation forces us to shift the tower in two directions, and every time there is an exceptional moment, as you can see in the section, we managed to create situations that expand the apartments, and somehow you can call it most like a house than a typical apartment. And in this case, on top of that tower, you can see have a garden with the views and being in direct contact with the sky. So this is Huergo Tower. I showed a few pictures a few moments ago, but I want to explain it a little more. It's located in the border between the oldest and the newest neighborhood of Buenos Aires. It is a tower with a certain attitude because it's a tower that generates its form from the interaction with the different scale of its surroundings. It overlooks Rio de la Plata from above the former harbor and reduces its scale, as you can see on your left, to meet the urban fabric to which it offers a public plaza. Each shift in its form proposes a collective use for a community of almost 1,000 people. The elevated terraces transform the tower into a true observatory, like a geographical feature of this new landscape. I like to finish the lecture with this project, which summarizes our way to relate with the ground and to the sky. It's a 120-meter high tower with more than 500 units. We saw the passageway on the bottom, but if we follow the section, you will find sports uses at the height of the treetops. You will have learning facilities under the cantilever, and communal kitchen and a terrace on top. Also, the laundry is positioned on top, and on top of that, there is an open garden and a swimming pool. With this side section, you kind of understand how the tower generates its form. It has an objective. It has a position almost like a body position. It looks to the Rio de la Plata, and at the same time, it reduces its scale by meeting the city fabric, and without changing the formal aspect. There is no plinth and tower. It's just one single structure that managed to change its form in order to relate to the different scales of the city. There you can see how the trees are higher than the building, and how the retail space activate the street. From other point of view, you can see how the tower managed to reach the height of the existing city fabric. And once you get inside, you see the shared spaces such as the sport link to a terrace, that link to the trees, link to the city fabric. When you see it from the river, you can see how the tower overhang the existing docks, and over that cantilever space, there are the study and work areas looking through Rio de la Plata and Puerto Madero, the newest neighborhood of Buenos Aires, and above of that. You have this huge terrace to see the sunset, because I mean the views from Rio de la Plata is completely dark. At night you see nothing, but this terrace looks like the whole city, and it's a spectacle with the sunset and with the city lights, and these 5 southern units can use a shared kitchen like this, or do their laundry next to this terrace. But on top of that, you can connect with the stair you see there, and then you finally get to this terrace, no, where you have trees. Again, the barbecue. It's an important thing of this equation, and from that, it's an open space that you can finally be in direct contact with the sky. With that, those gardens that are in one side and the other of the tower are connected to this swimming pool, which is at the end, this is kind of a vertical village, because all that people also share in pool in direct contact with the sky, located at 120 meters high from the ground. You have the Rio La Plata in front of you. And this tower highlights the same equation that drives the city. It can stack all these shared spaces because it concentrates a high density of inhabitants. This is exactly the same in cities. Today, we can gather in an auditorium like this, surrounded by public parks, transportation networks, facilities, museum, because we are in the city center of Philadelphia. Perhaps to look back to our relationship with the sky, the ground, and the cityscape will help us to formulate our desires more clearly. It will inspire us to imagine what kind of architecture can navigate a tremendously challenging agenda while still offering stimulating scenarios. Thank you very much.
Can you take some questions?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Before we take some questions, I just want to welcome and acknowledge KPF. Jamie Van Kempler had just got here from your delayed train, but we want to thank you for sponsoring this lecture. So we will take some questions, and what we'll do is raise your hand, and Michelle has a mic. Stand up, speak up, and Marcelo's here to answer them.
Hello, thank you for the beautiful lecture. And I was kind of like wondering that, like, for like few projects I've seen, like, which was parking lot and swimming pools and a few other projects as well, like, what I thought of is like giving me some kind of illusion that it is different place. For example, like parking lots, like I think is like a render, like no photo from the roof. The rails are like actually the rails I've seen like when I was driving, so it felt it like a road, like in the ground floor. And swimming pool was also like it felt it like as if it's underground, and all the housings and like other projects are seemingly like I'm not like at inside or like outside. It feels like I'm not like 30th floor roof. It feels like I'm, even though I'm like up the top, it feels like it's just outside, just walking through it. And also the project that I think it was housing project that outside has some kind of like barbecue space over there. That photo was also like, for me, it was not just like barbecue, like pots or just sitting over there. It actually felt like well crafted kitchen that you can open up or like some sort of things. So here my question is like, have you like intended to create those like illusional moments in the cityscape that in normal settings that you usually cannot find?
Thank you for the question. It's a good one and a tough one. So I think the city, it's an utopia that now we are used to it, no? And we tend to take for granted like some choreographies that we are used to, and we call floor or soil something that actually kind of is not. In this density, what we feel as a floor, it has a lot of technical layerings beneath that. Sometimes you have a subway, it's full of pipe. So by describing the city as an artificial crust, which I know it sounds kind of still very not comfortable for me, but the idea of doing so is that it denaturalize all your routines. And what do you expect of a floor? What do you expect from a rooftop? What do you expect from a balcony? It detaches the physical presence from its significance. And only through that you are able to reimagine the possibilities. And understanding that if you use the same type of floor in a public plaza, that feels like it's the floor, but it has like 3 levels of underground parking. And you use the same floor in an elevated garden. And you have the same kind of detail in the tower touching that artificial ground than the elevated one. You kind of get lost on which is the ground and which is not. And once you are in that scenario or mindset, let's say, you are able to see things in a different way and create a situation that feels strange at the beginning, but as a species, I'm sure we are able to naturalize that very quickly. Welcome.
So Marcelo, I usually don't ask questions, but I was really intrigued because I realized the humility that is very obvious in the archival work that you present. It's not so much about a singular building, but a contract that even you call it a contract with the ground, with landscape and the sky. And I can't help but realize that you are within that lineage of Mario Alvarez, no? Very clear. What made you decide, when you were a young architect, going back to Buenos Aires, you and Sebastian, to decide to continue this archival work of Buenos Aires as a city, as a place of construct with instruments that helps you and the larger Argentinian architecture? Instead of, obviously, without naming names, there's a lot of famous architects we all know in Argentina that were relevant in the 70s and the 80s. That's a conscious decision on your part to take the opposite, to take the quieter version of Alvarez. And I'm very curious why, and I commend you for that decision, but I'm just curious how you made that decision.
But by the time we decided to come back to Argentina, we were in Madrid in 2005, before the crisis of 2008. In that area, it was very easy to understand that You can create your practice after winning competition. There were a lot of them at that time. But we felt, and we visit a lot of those competitions that they were not needed. We felt that, I mean, they built airports in a city super small, cultural center that nobody went, and looking from a distance, Buenos Aires looked like architecture was needed for very ordinary and domestic problems. And we felt that even as a research ground was more exciting, I have to say, to go back and focus in the biggest demand of architecture. And it's good that you are bringing Mario Roberto Alvarez, which was one of our heroes, because if he demonstrated, and we try to continue somehow that attitude, that even if you work in a small plot in a very ordinary program as housing, you are still able to have an agenda going on. And if you choose a part of the possible commissions that are really needed, you are superimposing architecture to an agenda that is not only for architects, but the society at all. And what we wanted is to somehow continue with that tradition, maybe add a few elements to this if we are lucky enough, and then let anybody continue if they feel it makes sense. We really feel more comfortable with that idea that architecture as a form of knowledge, you don't need to kill your past in order to move forward, but to add a little bit element every time. So more or less that will be the answer. Okay.
Thank you for your lecture. I think like all the buildings here and all the designs look so amazing. And I have one question. It's like, it feels like all the designs have the restraint control for me. It's like everything looks like I think like it feels like you're more focusing like from the overview, like the outlook of itself. It feels like it's like a pattern. It's like a figure itself. And but like it's not always following the pattern itself. There's always something like a breath gap to me, feels like. So I'm wondering, like, when you're designing like a figure or like when you're designing the buildings, how do you come up with like this kind of language, and how do you like make sure like it follows each of designs?
Sorry, again, I didn't got it. My English is not so good as you can.
Oh, sorry. I mean, it's like just like when I see your building from the facade and from the facade, especially, like I can see it feels like a pattern. Like you're using like the wall, the windows feels like a pattern, like a pixel pattern itself.
Oh yeah.
But the pixel pattern itself is not always following the rules. There's always something like breaks the pattern.
Okay.
And also for the swimming pool itself too, like there's two circles. One is for the stairs, and the other is just like a pool. But it follows the pattern itself, like it's like a mirror. So I'm wondering, like, how do you come up with that kind of language, and how do you keep it for all the designs?
Totally. See, I choose to show tonight the urban projects. Most of them are situated in Buenos Aires and Montevideo, only a few of them far away. But these two cities share one thing, very important thing, which are the trees, as you can saw in the picture. That means that if you make a huge effort to over-design a facade, in the end, it will be covered by trees. No, that's a problem, but at the same time, it's extremely liberating. No, because if you work with those organic patterns and superimpose to a regular, rational one, cheaper, easy to build, to maintain, and so on, you will find that the aesthetic of the architecture is not just the building itself, but the perception of the building plus the inside garden plus the trees. And for doing so, you create a system, but because that system also can be operated from the people who live inside the building, who can open a shutter, close a curtain, and that means that by doing a very regular and systematic building, but overimpose it with vegetation and human needs, that initial apparently quiet geometric frame becomes something more complex and aesthetically maybe more charm, let's say. There.
Hi, thank you so much for this. This was actually, like, I couldn't stop smiling the whole time. I thought it was great.
Thank you.
I'm from Florida, and this type of design in a subtropical climate seems amazing. And my question to you is basically, how do you see this adapting to climates that aren't as tropical and aren't as conducive to indoor-outdoor lifestyles? Thank you.
Well, the weather from Buenos Aires is not so different from Florida. I think you mentioned. So I think we have more or less the same kind of problems. I've been to Florida a few times because my sister lives there. So I see all the time all those curtain walls. And I cannot stop imagining the effort of the machines in the back, and Buenos Aires more or less has the same radiation and everything. So I think that the compendium of details that I show you here also work for that climate. Even the winter garden, which was a surprise, because I presented 2 or 3 winter gardens tonight, and if you see them closely in the technical section, you will see that in the upper floor, in the upper part, as every winter garden, there are windows, but in our case, the winter garden has horizontal shutters made of perforated fabric, and that means that all the buildings require to operate them not just with the bottom, but with a physical enrollment. That creates at the same time a different relation with building. It's not just something that you manage from your cell phone. It creates like a more physical, when you move one sliding panel in order to create a ventilation, or you close a shutter, even horizontal or vertical. So I guess this compendium could also be useful for your town or your state. I don't know if I answer you quite well. Maybe not. Yeah? Okay. Thank you. And then there is another one. Okay.
I really liked your lecture, and I found the contract metaphor pretty useful. And I was kind of, the word... Excuse me. The word that was coming to my mind throughout the presentation was fence line, which there's like a lot of what you call the permeable curtain, which people can see through, but kind of like people can't really necessarily move through. And I was curious about how processes, like specifically ecological processes, relate to the fences in your work. Are there kind of decisions that you make regarding facilitating these processes between interior and exterior space and between buildings and public space as well.
So those ventilated curtain walls have like a very, let's call it universal issues to resolve. No, the sun radiation is one of them. I show another one where they work as a sound barrier. But as you mentioned, there are a lot of them with a mesh. No, and that mesh, I think it's very difficult to understand from an auditorium like this. But if you use the street view or the Google Street View, and you drop that little human into any street of Buenos Aires, you will find that most of the architects finish their work with a handrail made of glass, made of metal mesh, made of wood, concrete, whatever you like. There are a lot of variables about balcony and 1 meter of a handrail. But the next day, the inhabitant of that apartment moves, instantly they close the upper part of that balcony because of two reasons. Reason why, one, which is the most, let's say, questionable, is that they are afraid of people falling off, children falling off from the balconies. But the one that is all the time more present there is safety issues. We have those big trees that I just mentioned. It's very easy, but extremely easy to climb one of them and jump into a balcony and through that get into an apartment. It's a crazy situation. But for us, it gave us like the chance to do two things at once. First of all, and I'm being very honest by saying it, work with the kind of materials and perception that we feel comfortable with. You know, like blurring the presence of the building. No, the building starts like 1 or 2 meters, and you feel like a surface that catches the shadow, but it's not physical, so present. That's, let's say, it's a private obsession, we can call it. But at the same time, there was a public need, which an architect we were not giving a precise answer, that we were happily finishing the building with 100, and nobody was taking into account that the first action that the inhabitant did is to close it. So we believe that architecture must happen somewhere in between your private obsession and the public needs. And that kind of ventilated curtain wall talks a little bit about that.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a really eloquent lecture. And so I wanted to make a comment on and ask a question as well. And then before that, just to mention, the man in whose name this lecture series was created was named Sheldon Fox. He was a very quiet man. He was a founder of a thriving firm. I could maybe work in the same firm with him for 15, 20 years and heard him say maybe 3 sentences. So, and I relate that then to the quietness of your work. There's some thematic harmony there. Because, you know, what I appreciate seeing your work, I'm sorry, for the first time, I'm not that educated in Argentinian design, but is the beauty of this work that almost has no weight, so light. It visits the city without a giant footprint. I mean, it has a plan, but you know, you've gone to great lengths to make a beautifully veil-like set of surfaces. You could say evanescent, if you know that word, English word of almost weighs nothing. So, which is very beautiful, and I think it leaves us with an experience of lightening the spirit. As we sit in this room and watch the images, we are very calmed. So my question really is about the effect of the buildings, be they small, rooftop, or your cantilevered high-rise building, the effect on the psyche, on the psychology of those who use the buildings, who inhabit the buildings, pass by the buildings, because to me they have a kind of therapeutic effect. Light colors, light lines, really beautifully thin and almost weightless. Hard to imagine a chaotic urban process happening inside or around these buildings, which may be why they're so attractive. But I wonder whether you, as you serve your clients, individuals or communities, whether you notice or they talk to you about the effect that this mood of serenity that you create your buildings, what effect does that have on their lives? Presumably it's very therapeutic.
Wow. I mean, that lightness that you are talking about is totally rhetoric. Totally. It's more because, I mean, to build it, it takes a lot of effort. No? And a big amount of effort, as you can know. Yeah, I know that you know. But for us, it's something like choosing between two kinds of action. If you compare the champ, or when you saw a ballerina, no, performing, you feel that she is or he are weightless, no? You cannot feel the suffering in their feet, the tension in their muscles, and you feel like they are floating, no? When you compare that champ with the one of the athlete, basketball athlete, you feel like the tension and the strength there is no rhetoric. There is a transparency of that effort that is used as an expression, and it's not bad, no? But there are like two different angles by the same action. One champ seems to be effortless. The other one, you feel the effort of the athlete. Let me go back a little bit to explain a little bit more about this to the section of the last tower I presented. I think this is a tower with a 11-meter cantilever over here. Yeah, and it is that cantilever here. It's very blurry, but you can see those diagonal beams
Braces.
every 5 levels that go down to the core, and also the facade works as a Vierendel beam. But when you see the building from the outside, you cannot understand how it holds. We choose to go, of course, if we express those beams and everything, it will be amazing. And I love that kind of architecture too, I have to say. But I guess in our work, we choose the rhetoric champ of the ballerina other than the athlete. And yeah, that could be the answer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.